Sargon of Akkad, the divine orphan who made kings wet themselves. Picture it. Mesopotamia, around 2335 BCE. The air smells like barley, goat sweat, and ambition. Somewhere along the banks of the Euphrates, a woman, possibly a high priestess, possibly just a stressed-out single mom, gives birth to a child she cannot keep. She places him in a basket woven from reeds, seals it with bitumen, ancient duct tape, and sets it adrift. This baby, his name? Sargon, which means true king in Akkadian. This river? His first royal carriage. This moment? The beginning of empire. The river doesn't drown him, it carries him like prophecy to a man named Aki, a humble drawer of water. Aki scoops him up while dipping his ewe, yes, that's a sheep, and instead of tossing the soggy infant back, he raises him as his own. Sargon becomes a gardener, literally tending roots before he uproots kingdoms. Now here's where things get spicy. Sargon doesn't just grow up with dirt under his nails, he grows up blessed by a goddess. According to ancient texts, Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love, beauty, and war, yes, she multitasked, granted Sargon her favor while he was still a gardener. Imagine trimming hedges and suddenly getting a divine DM. Hey, you're cute? Want to conquer the world? Inanna Sargon took this divine endorsement seriously. He praised Inanna constantly, built temples in her honor, and elevated her from a minor deity to the Beyoncé of Mesopotamian religion. Later cultures like the Babylonians and Assyrians would worship her as Ishtar, and she'd become the poster goddess for everything from fertility to vengeance. And Sargon didn't stop there. He appointed a high priestess named Enheduanna to compose hymns to Inanna. Two mind-blowing facts about her. She's considered Sargon's daughter, though scholars debate if it's literal or honorary. She's the first known author in history whose name we actually know. That's right, before Homer, before Shakespeare, there was Enheduanna, dropping spiritual bars in cuneiform. Fast forward a few years. Sargon, now grown, lands a job as Cupbearer to King Ur-Zababa of Kish. This wasn't just a glorified waiter gig. Cupbearers were trusted insiders, close to the king, privy to secrets, and often future power players. But Ur-Zababa? He was spooked, and not just a little. According to one ancient text, the king had a dream, a nightmare, really, that Sargon would overthrow him. Instead of confronting him like a man, Ur-Zababa panicked like a cat in a thunderstorm. The text says, he became frightened in his residence like a lion. He urinated, sprinkling his legs, and the urine contained blood and pus. Yes, you read that right. The king was so scared of Sargon that he peed himself, and it wasn't even normal pee. It was medically concerning pee. Scholars have debated this line for years, but the consensus is, Sargon's vibe was terrifying. Ur-Zababa, in full meltdown mode, sends Sargon to deliver a message to the king of Uruk, hoping the rival king would kill him. But plot twist, the king of Uruk doesn't kill Sargon. Instead, Sargon rises, possibly overthrows Kish, and begins his conquest. From this moment, Sargon goes full imperial. He builds a new capital, Akkad, Agade, a city so legendary, archaeologists still haven't found it. It's like Atlantis, but with more clay tablets and fewer dolphins. He conquers all of Sumer, parts of Assyria lands stretching into Syria, Anatolia, and Elam. He rules for 56 years according to the Sumerian king list. And while that list also claims earlier kings ruled for 28,800 years, seriously, Sargon's reign is considered plausible. His empire was multi-ethnic, centralized, military-driven, culturally influential. He didn't just conquer. He standardized weights, measures, and administration. He made Mesopotamia function like a machine, not just a patchwork of feuding city-states. Sargon became the blueprint for kingship. Later rulers like Hammurabi and Ashurbanipal idolized him. Babylonian and Assyrian scribes wrote epic tales about him centuries later, turning him into a mythic figure, part man, part god, part propaganda. But here's the twist. Sargon may have fabricated his humble origins. Some scholars believe he invented the basket story to appear as a man of the people, contrasting the Sumerian kings who bragged about divine bloodlines. Whether orphan or opportunist, Sargon understood one thing: power isn't just taken, it's narrated. So who was Sargon? A river baby with divine favor, a gardener turned conqueror, a king who made other kings wet themselves, a PR genius who turned myth into monarchy, the founder of the first empire in history. He didn't just rule, he rewrote the rules. One night in the palace of Kish, King Ur-Zababa was probably sipping barley beer and muttering about irrigation taxes when he noticed something strange. His cupbearer Sargon was asleep, but not peacefully. He was groaning, twitching, possibly whispering divine secrets in his sleep. Now, Ur-Zababa was already paranoid. He'd had dreams of Sargon overthrowing him. He'd peed himself in fear once already, with blood and pus, no less. Mesopotamian drama doesn't do subtle. So what does he do? He wakes Sargon up and demands, "Tell me your dream, and don't lie, or I'll feed you to the temple goats." Sargon, ever the honest overachiever, spills the celestial tea. "My lord, I saw Inanna, goddess of love and war. She appeared as tall as the heavens and as wide as the earth. And then she drowned you in a river of blood." Cue dramatic thunder. Cue royal panic. Cue Ur-Zababa's second bladder failure. Now, Ur-Zababa is convinced that Sargon is divinely chosen to overthrow him. But he's also a coward. He doesn't want to kill Sargon himself. What if the gods punish him? So he hatches a plan so convoluted it sounds like a rejected episode of Breaking Babylon. He sends Sargon to the temple of Ishtar, Isakil, with a bronze mirror, instructing him to deliver it to the chief smith. But here's the twist. The smith has secret orders to throw both Sargon and the mirror into the molten molds used for casting statues. That's right, the king wants Sargon melted into a decorative figurine. Sargon, unaware of the plot, heads to the temple. But just as he approaches the gate, Inanna intervenes. Maybe she whispers in his ear. Maybe a divine gust of wind slaps the mirror out of his hands. Either way, Sargon doesn't enter. He leaves the mirror at the gate and walks away, cool, calm, and completely unmelted. The smith waits. The mold bubbles. But Sargon never shows. Divine dodge. 1 royal plot. 0. Ur-Zababa, now sweating harder than a goat in a sauna, tries again. This time he sends Sargon to the city of Umma, carrying a sealed message to King Lugal-Zagissi. But this isn't a diplomatic note. It's a death warrant. The message literally says, "Kill the guy delivering this." Now how did Sargon survive this? The tablets don't say. They just stop. Like a Netflix series canceled mid-season. But here's what scholars think might have happened. Lugal-Zagissi read the message, laughed and said, "Nice try, Ur-Zababa." Or maybe Inanna intervened again, whispering sweet divine nothings into Lugal-Zagissi's ear. Or maybe Sargon charmed his way out, offering military support or divine favor. Whatever the case, Sargon didn't die. In fact, he flipped the script. Somehow, he gained power, overthrew Ur-Zababa, and took control of Kish, the city he once served wine in. From cupbearer to king, from target to tactician, Sargon had arrived. Now let's talk about Lugal-Zagissi, the king of Umma. He wasn't just some side character. He was a serious contender for the title of first emperor. Before Sargon's rise, Lugal-Zagissi had conquered Uruk, Lagash, Ur, and even Kish, united most of Sumer under his rule, held sway over a homogeneous population, all Sumerians, same language, same gods. So technically he ruled a large kingdom, not an empire. Why? Because an empire by modern definition is multi-ethnic, multilingual, culturally diverse, often ruled by someone who doesn't share the same background as all subjects. Sargon? He went beyond Sumer. He conquered the Elamites, northern tribes, and eastern territories. His rule spanned diverse peoples, making his dominion the first true empire. So while Lugal-Zagissi was the regional champ, Sargon became the world heavyweight emperor. After securing Kish, Sargon didn't just sit on a throne and sip date wine. He built a new capital, Akkad, Agade. This city was the birthplace of the Akkadian language, a cultural melting pot of Sumerian and Semitic traditions, a political nerve center for the empire. Akkadian, the language, was one of the oldest Semitic languages, influenced heavily by Sumerian cuneiform, used for 1800 years across Mesopotamia, adopted by Babylonians and Assyrians, eventually replaced by Aramaic, but not before shaping the ancient world, and the city itself, still lost. Despite being referenced in hundreds of cuneiform tablets, archaeologists haven't found Akkad. It's the Atlantis of Mesopotamia, real, powerful, and missing. But scholars believe it was somewhere near the Euphrates, possibly north of Babylon. And when it's found, expect statues, tablets, and maybe even Sargon's royal sandals. One of our most important sources on Sargon comes from the tablets of Nippur, an ancient Sumerian city that became a religious hub. These tablets confirm Sargon's rule, reference Akkad as a real city, detail administrative reforms, conquests, and divine endorsements, show how Sargon's empire was organized, taxed, and governed. They're like the ancient receipts of empire, dusty, cracked, and priceless. Discovered over a century ago in the ruins of Nippur, a sacred Sumerian city in modern-day Iraq, these old Babylonian tablets are like the Instagram captions of ancient kings, short, dramatic, and full of flex. Though written centuries after Sargon's death, they preserve inscriptions originally carved into Akkadian statues placed in the temple of Enlil, the chief god of wind, kingship, and divine authority. These inscriptions are less poetic, more brutal, and they read like a military resume with a side of divine endorsement. Here's the highlight reel. Sargon, king of Akkad, conquered Uruk and tore down its walls. Translation: I didn't just win, I made sure they couldn't rebuild. He captured Lugal-Zagissi and paraded him in a wooden collar to the gate of Enlil. Translation: here's your former king, I gift-wrapped him. He defeated Lagash, Umma, and washed his weapons in the sea. Translation: I conquered so much, I needed a beach day. Mari and Elam were subject to Sargon. Translation: even the neighbors bowed. He restored Kish. Translation: I didn't conquer it, I liberated it. You're welcome. And just in case anyone got ideas about defacing his legacy, the inscription ends with a curse. May Shamash tear out your roots and destroy your seed. That's ancient Mesopotamian for, touch this tablet and your family tree gets nuked. Now here's a juicy twist. Kish, the city where Sargon once served as Cupbearer, isn't listed as conquered. Instead, it's described as restored. What does that mean? Maybe Sargon usurped the throne quietly, without bloodshed. Maybe he gained support from within, using his insider knowledge. Maybe he spared Kish out of nostalgia, like a king who fondly remembers his first job at the palace wine bar. Whatever the case, Kish became his launchpad. From there, he built Akkad, assembled an army, and began his city-by-city domination of Sumer. Once Sumer was under his sandal, Sargon looked east, toward Elam, a powerful civilization ruled by the Awan dynasty. Around 2300 BCE, he marched into Susa, Elam's capital, and deposed King Lu-Ishan. But Elam wasn't the only target. Sargon also fought Parashum, known in Sumerian as Marhashi, a mysterious kingdom whose exact location is still unknown. Scholars believe it was far east, possibly in modern-day Iran or Afghanistan. And here's the kicker. Marhashi kept rebelling. Sargon had to repeatedly crush uprisings. His successors inherited the headache. It was like trying to hold sand in your fist. The farther the conquest, the harder the grip. Not every city got the royal treatment. Some got the Sargon special, total annihilation. Take Kazalu. We don't know what they did. Maybe they insulted Inanna, maybe they refused tribute, maybe they just existed on the wrong Tuesday. But according to Babylonian tablets, Sargon marched into Kazalu and turned it into a ruined heap so that not even a perch for a bird was left. That's not just destruction, that's petty, poetic obliteration. Even the birds were like, nope. Not nesting here. Sargon didn't stop at Elam, he turned north toward modern-day Syria and Turkey. He conquered Mari, a city of canals and palaces, Tutul, a strategic river city, Ebla, a rich trade hub, Purushanda, a city-state in Anatolia ruled by King Ur-Zababa. According to a Babylonian epic titled King of Battle, Sargon marched so far north he entered Anatolia, the land of mountains and metal. There, he faced Ur-Zababa, who probably thought he was safe behind his hills. Spoiler, he wasn't. Sargon conquered Purushanda, proving that his empire wasn't just regional. It was continental. According to one ancient account, after conquering half of Mesopotamia, Sargon sailed the Mediterranean Sea and captured Keptara, which scholars believe might be Cyprus. Now let's pause. Cyprus, in the 23rd century BCE, with reed boats and divine swagger? Some scholars say, absolutely not, that's ancient fan fiction. Others say, well, maybe. He was Sargon. If true, it means Sargon's empire stretched far beyond the Euphrates into the unknown northwest, making him not just the first emperor, but the first intercontinental conqueror. If false, it's still a testament to his legendary status. People believed he could do anything, including sailing to Cyprus and conquering it with a glare. As Sargon's conquests piled up, he learned the golden rule of empire building. The bigger your empire, the more people want to stab you in the back. To manage his sprawling domain, Sargon installed governors in every conquered city, sent citizens of Akkad, his loyalists, to oversee administration, spread the Akkadian language, turning it into the lingua franca of Mesopotamia for nearly 2,000 years. But even with divine favor and bureaucratic brilliance, revolts kept popping up like whack-a-mole. According to the Chronicle of Early Kings, all the lands rebelled and surrounded him in Akkad. Sargon fought back, crushed them, and overpowered their extensive armies. Then came Batu, who attacked in full force. Sargon set an ambush, defeated them, and sent their possessions to Akkad. It was like a never-ending boss battle, and Sargon kept winning, but the stress was mounting. Now comes the divine drama. Apparently, Sargon angered Marduk, the Babylonian god of justice and storms. Why? Maybe he built too many temples to Inanna. Maybe he forgot to send a thank you offering. Maybe Marduk just didn't like empires. So Marduk cursed him with insomnia, famine, rebellions. Imagine being the most powerful man in the world and not being able to sleep. That's not just tragic, that's Shakespearean. And yet, Sargon kept winning, at least according to the chronicles written in his honor. They don't mention failures, just victories and curses. And sleepless nights. Scene 4, the dynasty of Sargon. Rise, rule, and ruin. After a reign of 56 years, or at least 40 plus, depending on which ancient calendar you trust, Sargon died, likely of natural causes. He was old, tired, and probably still awake. He was succeeded by his son Remush, who faced immediate revolts, ruled for less than a decade, possibly died violently. The tablets are vague but suspicious. Then came Manishtushu, another son of Sargon, who continued the fight, expanded trade, was succeeded by his own son, Naram-Sin, the rock star of the Akkadian dynasty. Naram-Sin called himself king of the four quarters of the earth, declared himself divine, built monuments that screamed, "I am the universe," took the empire to its absolute peak. But as every empire learns, after the peak comes the plunge. Enter the Gutians, mysterious tribes from the Zagros Mountains, who didn't care about titles, temples, or divine kings. They raided Akkadian cities, used hit-and-run tactics, crippled infrastructure, eventually stormed Akkad itself. And here's the kicker. They destroyed Akkad so thoroughly, we still don't know where it was. It's like they erased the empire's capital from history. No ruins, no statues, no GPS coordinates, just whispers and clay tablets. Before Sargon, Mesopotamia was a patchwork of city-states. Kings ruled small territories. Conquest was local. After Sargon, empire became the goal. Kings wanted to rule all lands. The idea of unified dominion became the standard. Even the Gutians, who destroyed Akkad, couldn't erase the idea. Soon after, the Sumerian Renaissance emerged, centered around Ur, trying to rebuild what Sargon had once forged. So what do we have? A man who rose from basket baby to sleepless emperor. A city, Akkad, that became the linguistic heart of Mesopotamia. A dynasty that ruled for 140 years. A legacy that defined empire for millennia. Sargon didn't just conquer cities, he conquered time. He turned clay tablets into immortality. He made kings dream bigger and gods dream of vengeance. And somewhere, beneath the sands of Iraq, Akkad still waits. Maybe one day we'll find it. Maybe we'll uncover the throne where Sargon once sat, eyes wide open, cursed by gods but unbroken by men. Coming up next, Hammurabi's Code, 282 laws of divine justice, brutal clarity, and zero room for negotiation. What do you get when you mix divine authority, ancient politics, and a king who thought eye for an eye was just the warm-up act? If a builder's house collapses, he dies. If a son strikes his father, his hand is gone. If a man accuses another falsely, he's thrown into the river to let the gods decide. And you, dear viewer, would you survive a week in Babylon? Would your tweets get you flogged? Would your parking violations cost you a limb? Before we dive into the stone-cold justice of the ancient world, ask yourself, why did Hammurabi believe fear was the foundation of fairness? How did his laws echo across empires, religions, and even your local courthouse? If you're ready to uncover the dark brilliance of history's most infamous legal code, subscribe to Dark Crown Chronicles, turn on notifications, and join us. Because in Hammurabi's Babylon, justice wasn't blind. It was watching. And it had a chisel.